Chapter 2. Chapter 2. Police Force in the World, a General View. Police Force in the World, a General View. The British Police System. The British Police System. In England, the Anglo-Saxons of the AD 800s organized the people for military purposes into tens, tithing, and hundreds. In each community, 10 families made up a tithing and choose a tithing man as their representative. Then, tithing made up a hundred and elected a reeve as their spokesman and leader. Several hundreds made up a shire county. The word sharif is a shortened form of shire reeve. When the Normans conquered England in 1066 AD, they used this system for public protection and safety. Men over 16 had to stand watch and ward duty in their community. On such duty, the men questioned travelers after dark, held all suspicious persons, and watched for men for any disturbances. All able bodied men would join in a hue and cry, a chase to capture a suspect. As cities grew, the police system became larger and more organized. By 1800 AD, London had its own night watch and also many special police to guard docks, markets, and other places. Special police called Bow Street Runners served notices and warrants for city courts. In 1829 AD, Sir Robert Peel (1788 to 1850 AD) organized the Metropolitan Police of London, a body of paid and trained policemen for day and night duty. The public called these policemen bobbies or peelers. After Sir Robert Peel, and the name bobbies is still used today. In 1931 AD, Lord Trenchard succeeded Lord Bang as Chief Commissioner of the Metropolitan Police and at once initiated certain reforms, the chief outcome of which was the new police college at Hendon, opened in May 1934 AD as the basis of a new system of recruitment to the higher posts in the force. Another innovation was the recruitment of about 30% of the constables for a term of 10 years only instead of 25 years or more. The Criminal Investigation Department, one of the most active and efficient branches of the police executive, came into existence after the establishment of the present system. It is in direct descent from the old Bow Street runners who, upon special requisition in the case of serious crime, varied their customary duties at the Bow Street Police Office, as it was then called, by acting as detective officers either in London or the provinces. The first detective appointed in the new department numbered only 3 inspectors and 9 sergeants, to whom, however, 6 constables were shortly added as auxiliaries. This number was subsequently enlarged as the manifold advantages of the system became more and more obvious. The system now attracts candidates of superior capacity and education. The statistics in 1934 AD show the strength of the Metropolitan Police to be 19,405, including the Criminal Investigation Department and the Thames River Police. Then the establishment of women police in the Metropolitan District comprised, in addition, a superintendent, 3 inspectors, 7 sergeants, and 45 constables. There were also 16,156 special constables attached to the reserves in 1934 AD. The City of London had its own police establishment, about 1200, under a commissioner and assistant commissioner. Its functions extended over an area of 677 statute acres containing two courts of summary jurisdiction where the Lord Mayor and the aldermen were the magistrates. Sorry. The development of the British police system was especially significant because the pattern that emerged not only became a model for the American police system but also had great influence on the style of policing in almost all industrial societies. Police in USA. In the United States, the English colonists brought the watch and ward system to America. The man who stood watch served without pay, and wealthy citizens often hired others to serve for them. Texas had the first state police system in the United States. The Texas Rangers, organized in 1835 AD, at first served as a border patrol, but later took over general police work. In 1838 AD, Boston set up a paid police force of men to stand watch during the day. In 1844 AD, the New York legislature passed a law establishing an 800-man police force in New York City for day and night duty. By 1970 AD, cities throughout the United States had police departments organized like that of New York City. The Boston Police's strike of 1919 AD gained nationwide attention. Members of the policemen's union went on strike when the police commissioner refused to allow them to join national labor unions. For almost a day, Boston had no police protection. Calvin Coolidge, 1872-1933 AD, then governor of Massachusetts, called out the state guard and ended the strike. In USA, the first fully organized police department were formed in New York City in 1845 AD and shortly thereafter in Boston, not only in response to crime but also to control unrest. The American police adopted many British methods, but at times they became involved in local partisan politics. The British police, on the other hand, have traditionally remained aloof from partisan politics and have depended on loyalty to the law rather than to elected public officials as the source of their authority and independence. Massachusetts appointed a number of state constables in 1865 AD, and Connecticut established a similar force in 1903 AD. In the late 1900s, policemen were called constables. The name cop, a slang word for policeman, may have come from the initials COP, which stands for Constable on Patrol. But some authorities say that cop is shortened form of copper, a name that referred to the star-shaped copper badges policemen wore. By the mid 19th century, increasing number rates in Boston, New York, and other large cities resulted in the establishment of new police forces. These new police forces differed from the old in that the new officers worked both day and night, wore uniforms, carried firearms, and patrolled the streets in an attempt to prevent crime and maintain order. During this period, the patterns of basic present day urban police operations were set. All states except one, Hawaii, have state high level patrols or state police. Highway patrols direct their efforts to highway, motor vehicle, and traffic safety functions. State police authority includes jurisdiction over many types of criminal activity as well as traffic services. Now, the US police system differs subsequently from those of other democratic nations. On the international level, the United States is a member of the International Criminal Police Organization, Interpol. This is a mutual assistance group that exchanges information among its police members about criminals who operate in more than one country, whose crimes affect other countries, or who have fled from one country to another to escape prosecution. The United States has a fragmented system of police administration comprising some 19,000 separate municipal and county law enforcement agencies and an estimated 21,000 additional federal, state, and local agencies with specialized jurisdictions of responsibility. Approximately half the local law enforcement agencies consist of fewer than 10 police officers. In United States, there are several levels of policing and law enforcement services: federal police, state police, special purpose district police, parks, school, housing, transit, etc. County police, sheriffs, constables, and some county police agencies, and local police. There are thousands of separate police forces. Local policing is usually conducted by the police departments at the county, city, township, or village level and may range from one person offices, sometimes still called the town marshal, to the 40,000 men and women of the New York City Police Department. County sheriffs, county police, state police, and highway patrols may assist the local police with investigations and operate county jails and state prisons. They also enforce laws in their particular jurisdictions of the city. Special district police tend to be security forces with little or no off-site authority. One exception, however, is the Los Angeles and non-sworn personnel covers 704 square miles from 5 police divisions. A police SUV used by the couple, Texas police force, federal police, fall into two broad categories. Number one, investigation agencies such as Federal Bureau of Investigation, the United States Marshal Services, the Drug Enforcement Administration, and the United States Secret Service, and uniformed security police agencies such as the Federal Protective Service, US Mint Police, United States Park Police, and United States Border Patrol. And number two, US Park Police Force officers standing by during 2005. Its inauguration was a new experience. Both types operate at the highest level and are endowed with police or quasi-police roles. The investigative agencies have nationwide jurisdiction, while the uniformed agencies tend to have rather limited territorial jurisdiction. The FBI has the most general investigative powers, while the other federal agencies are highly specialized. All federal agencies are limited by the US Constitution to investigating only matters that are explicitly within the power of the federal government, like interstate commerce. Nowadays, federal investigative powers are in practice very broad. Because of all this complexity at a crime or disaster scene affecting large numbers of people, there will be many different police agencies involved. Usually, the highest local agency or the highest federal law enforcement agency, the FBI, if a federal law was involved, will take command in such confusing situations as depicted in movies like The Negotiator or Die Hard. In the United States, 9 major federal law enforcement agencies have full-scale police powers. They are the Federal Bureau of Investigation and the Border Patrol in the Department of Justice, the Bureau of the Chief Postal Inspector in the Post Office Department, and the United States Secret Service and the Internal Revenue Service, the Alcohol Tax Unit, the Bureau of Customs, the Bureau of Narcotics, and the United States Coast Guard. Federal laws define the duties of each agency to prevent overlapping in authority or operations. All have power to enforce only national laws. A federal officer may make arrests within a state only for counterfeiting, kidnapping, evasion of federal taxes, or other violations of federal law. In addition to the major federal agencies, several departments or bureaus have limited powers to enforce laws. They include the Department of State, passport and extradition laws, the National Park Service, forest preservation, the public health services, laws concerning epidemic diseases, and the Department of Agriculture, laws concerning animal and plant quarantine. A. Law enforcement agencies. A. Law enforcement agencies. The principal enforcement agencies of the federal government are the Department of Justice, the Department of Homeland Security, and the United States Postal Service. The jurisdiction of federal law enforcement agencies is limited to the government's power to regulate interstate commerce, impose taxes, and enforce constitutional and federal law. Department of Justice agencies include Federal Bureau of Investigation (FBI), which deals with bank robberies, kidnappings, terrorism, and violation of other federal laws and provides training, identification, and laboratory services to local police. Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives, which investigates alcohol and tobacco smuggling, bombings, and violations of federal firearms and arson laws. Number 3. Drug Enforcement Administration (DEA), which investigates cases involving illicit narcotics and drugs. U.S. Marshals Service, which has responsibility for safeguarding and transporting federal prisoners and acting as marshals for U.S. courts. Law enforcement agencies in the Department of Homeland Security include: Number 1. United States Coast Guard, which protects the country's ports and waterways. Number 2. Bureau of Border Security, which enforces immigration laws and includes the Border Patrol. Number 3. Secret Services, whose primary responsibility is include protection of the President and Vice President and their families and investigation of counterfeit. The United States Customs Services, which investigates smuggling and inspects passengers, vehicles, and cargo entering or leaving the country. Within the U.S. Postal Service, the Postal Inspection Services deals with such crimes as mail fraud and misuse of the mails. Basically, two kinds of state police agencies exist in the United States: those with general functions similar to local police, and those with limited responsibility, mainly involving highway patrol or state roads. A city police force is usually organized as one of several departments within the local government. The police are part of the local criminal justice system, which is the means by which society deals with criminals. The system includes the prosecuting attorney's office, the courts, probation offices, and correction agencies. These are thousands of private and industrial security forces in the United States. These organizations employ a substantial percentage of all persons engaged in police work, and the use of private security by both businesses and individuals is increasing rapidly. Large corporations often maintain security forces to curb internal thefts, shoplifting, robberies, and trespassing. B. Personal. B. Personal. A mayor, city administrator, or legislative body usually appoints the executive head of a police department, the superintendent, commissioner, or chief of police. In large agencies, executive officers may be selected through a civil services or merit system after moving through the ranks from patrol officer to sergeant, lieutenant, captain, and in still larger agencies, deputy or assistant chief. At the county level, the head of the agency usually holds the title sheriff. The sheriff is almost always elected and has the power to appoint deputies. Sheriff's department often provide law enforcement services for unincorporated areas of counties and are usually responsible for functions not normally carried out by municipal police, such as operating the county jail, providing courtroom security, and serving legal documents, including subpoenas and court orders. C. Police organizations. C. Police organization. A police department's goals are to prevent crime, investigate crime, and apprehend offenders, control traffic, maintain order, and deal with emergencies and disasters. C1. Prevention of crime. The patrol division, consisting of uniformed patrol officers and supervisors, provides basic police services. In addition to foot and automobile patrol, officers engage in a variety of activities in response to citizens' needs. Officers in police cars assigned to specific beats or designated areas of the community today carry out the greater part of patrol. In small agencies, one officer patrol cars are prevalent. In larger cities, combinations of one and two officers cars are common. Use of women officers for patrol duty is increasing. Before 1970, the practice was unknown. Recent research has raised doubts about the effectiveness of preventive patrol to curb most kinds of crime. Crime prevention, however, also means activities related to improving the security of homes and businesses and to educating citizens to protect themselves. Most large police departments maintain a crime prevention unit to provide these services. C2. Criminal investigation. After patrol officers have conducted preliminary investigations, detectives who work in plain clothes further investigate serious crimes. Most detectives are assigned to the Criminal Investigations Division after several years on patrol duty. In large departments, detectives are organized into specialized units such as homicide, robbery, and narcotics. Contrary to popular belief, many cases solved by detectives are based on arrests made by patrol officers or on leads supplied by officers or victims as a result of preliminary investigations. C3. Traffic control. Patrol officers carry out most traffic law enforcement and accident investigation. In large cities, however, specialists may handle serious or hit and run accidents, and motorcycle patrols may be responsible for freeway traffic. In the largest jurisdiction, officers may be assigned to traffic direction at busy intersections. A recent trend in many cities has been toward the use of civilian employees to handle parking violations. C4. Special police units. Modern police service often includes special units to handle special problems. In major American cities, tactical units, highly trained and well equipped, are available to quell riots. Bomb squads are also on call. The bomb squad of the New York City Police Department, for example, is widely known for its outstanding work in handling bomb cases and scars. Other units specialize in dealing with hostage situations. C5. Non-criminal services. In most communities, about 60 to 70% of the time spent by patrol officers on operational activities is not crime related. Officers are called on to locate missing persons and lost children and to deal with martial disputes, crowd control, and ambulance calls. D. Police technology. Requests for police services are generally transmitted to headquarters by telephone and then by radio to officers in the field. Police have long operated on the theory that fast response time results in more arrests and less risk or injury to victims. The current trend is toward handling calls by priority, with emergency response reserved for cases involving an injured party or those in which a reasonable chance exists to prevent a crime or make an arrest at the scene. Modern counter assisted dispatching systems permit automatic selection of the nearest beat officer in service. In some cities, officers can receive messages displayed on computer terminals in their cars without voice communication from headquarters. An officer, for example, can key in the license number of a suspect vehicle and receive an immediate response from the computer as to the status of the vehicle and the owner's identity. An increasing number of agencies are now using computers to link crime patterns with certain suspects. Fingerprints found at crime scenes can be electronically compared with fingerprint files. Other departments use computers for workload analysis, budgeting, and payroll systems. In recent years, technological advances have been made in such areas as voice print identification, use of the scanning electron microscope, and serology, an important tool because only 2% in 70,000 have identical blood characteristics. Some of the new laboratory techniques, although highly effective, are extremely expensive. So, their use is limited to the most challenging cases. E. Contemporary issues and trends. In the United States today, important and controversial issues have arisen regarding the administration and operation of police forces, especially in urban centers. E1. Police unions. In recent years, police unions, including groups associated with National Labor Organization, have grown rapidly. Critics of this trend argue that unionized police forces are less likely to be neutral in controlling disorders that occur during labor strikes. Some people also believe that union affiliation will weaken official authority in maintaining discipline. Others argue that management deficiencies often prompt the need for unions and that unionization will lead to greater job satisfaction, higher morale, and increased tenure. Because police are public employees, laws restricted their right to strike or to participate in other job actions. The trend seems to be for police unions to engage in compulsory or binding arbitration when labor disputes arise. E2. Restraints on police methods. The police continue to rely on investigative methods that emphasize interviewing witnesses, interrogating suspects, developing sources of information through informants, carrying out surveillances, and making undercover purchases of narcotics and stolen property. These activities and the searches and arrests that result have received the full scrutiny of the courts. Sorry. In recent decades, the Supreme Court of the United States has imposed conditions on police methods such as the recruitment that immediately after arrest a person must be informed of his or her rights, including the right to counsel and the right to remain silent. The court has also restricted the use of evidence obtained illegally or extra legal, such as information from unauthorized wiretapping. E3. Police and civil disorders. The police are crucial in preventing and controlling civil disorders. In the aftermath of civil disturbances in the 1960s, for example, authorities recognized the importance of preventing police action from becoming a precipitating cause in itself, as well as the need for police to engage in positive community related activities to alleviate tensions. Use of deadly force. No issue provokes more intense controversy within minority communities than police policy concerning the use of force, especially deadly force. Some police officials and most minority community leaders believe that a police officer should use a firearm only in defense of a life, either that of the officer or of some other person, in immediate jeopardy. Others think that existing state laws, many of which permit an officer to use any force necessary to arrest a suspected felon, should not be limited by local policies. E5. Equal employment opportunities. In the past decades, prodded by changes in public attitudes and by court decisions, police departments have recruited increasing number of minority members and women, a, a movement away from arbitrarily determined eligibility requirements such as minimum height and maximum ages has also occurred. E6. Citizen policy. In some cities, volunteer citizen patrol have been formed to prevent crime. In a few cases, these patrol operate without an official relationship to the police department. Far more common, however, is the use of police organized uniformed citizen groups, generally known as reserve or auxiliary police. Police in Canada. After 800 police forces operated in Canada today, There are three levels of police forces: municipal, provincial, and federal. Constitutionally, law enforcement is a provincial responsibility. Although most urban areas have been given the authority to maintain their own police force, many municipalities contract out their law enforcement to the provincial authorities, and all but three provinces in turn contract out their law enforcement responsibility to the Royal Canadian Mounted Police (RCMP), organized in 1873 AD. The federal force, which therefore is the only police force in the world to service three distinct levels: the unsettled areas and the Northwest and Yukon territories. Besides acting as federal police, Royal Canadian Mounted Police, called the Mounties, may also serve as local or provincial police. Any community or province can hire their services by paying the government a certain sum for each trooper stationed in the area. Ontario and Quebec are the only two provinces that have provincial police forces and are assigned with general law enforcement responsibilities. The Mounties have been contracted for the police work in all the other provinces. Today, most Mounties use motor vehicles instead of horses. Ontario, Quebec, and Newfoundland and Labrador maintain their own provincial police forces. The smaller Canadian cities often contract police forces from the RCMP, while larger cities maintain their own force. The Canadian police system bears some resemblance to the United Kingdom and the US system. The Royal Canadian Mounted Police (RCMP) is the counterpart of the FBI. It is mandated to enforce federal laws. The RCMP differs from the FBI in that it has responsibility for law enforcement in provinces that do not have provincial state police. Canada also has municipal police departments, which constitutes the largest number of police agencies in the country. Nearly three quarters of all full-time police employees work for municipal agencies. In European countries, Canada and Japan, police forces are highly centralized. Great Britain, for example, with a population of approximately 46 million people, about one-fifth that of the United States, has a total of 39 law enforcement agencies compared to some 20,000 in the United States. The London Metropolitan Police Department, with its headquarters at Scotland Yard, is the largest agency in the country. Police in France. Police in France. Most European countries have police forces that are organized on a national basis. Policing in France, for example, is preliminary the responsibility of two national law enforcement bodies: the Gendarmerie Nationale, which policies rural areas and small towns, and the Police Nationale, which is responsible for policing Paris and provincial urban jurisdictions with populations of more than 10,000. The French police system has influenced other countries, especially those that were formerly part of the French colonial empire. Additionally, French municipalities may have a local police called the police municipale, grade municipal, or grade champetry with restricted powers. They can only enforce the municipal bylaws, amongst which those related to the road circulation, and participate in prevention action, survey, evacuation of buildings, protection against accidents, etc. These personnel may or may not be allowed to bear to the firearms. Note that in French, the term police does not only refer to the forces but also to the general concept of maintenance of law and order, policing. These are two types of police in this general sense. Number one, administrative police, police administrative, preventive action, patrol, signalizing accidental areas, overpowering a violent person, taking care of a lost or abandoned child, etc. Judicial police, police judiciary, noticing infringements of the law, searching for the proofs and for the authors of the crime, investigation, and full powers of arrest. Thus, the mayor has the administrative police power on the town, that is, she can order the police force to enforce the municipal bylaws. People who disrupt the proceedings are expelled from the courtroom. Until 1984 AD, uh, the National Police was involved in the pre-hospital care and casualty transport police rescues. The hospital care is now performed by firemen. However, mountain rescue is performed by the Gendarmerie PGHM, Felaton D, Gendarmerie D, Hoti, Montagne, and CRS Compagnies Republicanes D Security, National Police Republican Security Company. Some other countries follow this model and have separate police agencies with the same rule but different jurisdiction. Police in Germany. After World War II, 1939 to 1945, the Allied occupational forces introduced a British American style of decentralized police force to West Germany, now part of the United Federal Republic of Germany, partly to prevent a return to a national military force. The experiment was not totally successful, however, and a compromise currently exists between a national force and decentralization. Germany is organized into semi-autonomous provinces or states, each with its own independently elected state government, judiciary, and police. There is also a federal investigative bureau, the Bundeskriminalamt, which is renowned for its sophisticated computerized record system and technology. Police in Israel. In the Middle East, Israel has a single national police force that has been patterned after elements of the British Palestine Police. Following independence in 1948 AD, attempts were made to demilitarize the force, but recurrent conflicts with neighboring Arab states have compelled the police to maintain security against the actions of the freedom fighters, as well as carrying on the usual law enforcement activities. The battle hardened Israeli police have developed highly effective investigative methods and technical capabilities. Police in communist nations. Little is known about the operation or organization of the police in communist nations, as details of the system are generally kept secret. Operations. Operations. Police operations involve the actual work of law enforcement agencies. The range of police activities is quite broad. It includes areas of patrol, detective work, traffic control, vice, crime prevention, and special tactical forces. The patrol function has three basic components: answering calls for assistance, maintaining a police presence, and probing suspicious circumstances. The object of the patrol function is to disperse the police in ways that will eliminate or reduce the opportunities for law breaking and to increase the likelihood that a criminal will be caught while committing crime or soon thereafter. Detectives are primarily concerned with law enforcement activities after a crime has been reported. They are involved in an investigative function, relying on criminal history files, laboratory technicians, and forensic scientists for help in apprehending criminals. Specialized operations units are set up to deal with particular types of problems: traffic, vice, juvenile, and special weapons and tactics. SWAT units are often created in larger departments to deal with such problems. Enforcement of laws against vice, prostitution, gambling, narcotics is the area that involves undercover work and informers. Juvenile divisions work on processing youth arrests, prepare and present court cases in which a juvenile is involved, and often divert juvenile offenders out of the criminal justice system. The special weapons and tactics SWAT units are trained in workmanship and equipped with shotguns, sniping rifles, automatic weapons, climbing gear, and other specialized equipment useful in dealing with snipers, barricaded persons, or hostage takers. Selection and training. Police agencies use a number of criteria to pick the best qualified applicants. The most prominent selection methods include a written examination, a background investigation, an oral interview, a medical examination, and possibly psychological testing. Virtually all departments have minimum requirement for age, height, weight, and visual acuity. Standards vary from each of these categories. Most departments require only a high school diploma as the minimum level of education attainment. The formal training for a police recruit involves primarily the technical aspects of police work, the details of criminal law and procedure, internal departmental rules, and the care and use of firearms. Sorry. The International Criminal Police Organization, Interpol. The International Criminal Police Organization, Interpol. International Criminal Police Organization or Interpol is intergovernmental body established to promote mutual cooperation between police authorities around the world and to develop means of effective preventing crime. Founded in Vienna in 1923 AD and reconstituted in 1946 AD, Interpol is strictly non-political and is forbidden to undertake any activities of a religious, racial or military nature. The majority of the country is 177 to 97 to 1997 AD belong to Interpol and only government approved police bodies may hold membership. The General Assembly meets annually to decide policy and to elect the executive committee consisting of a president, three vice presidents and nine delegates, all of different nationalities. The General Secretariat based in Lyons, France is the permanent administrative headquarters. Interpol does not conduct worldwide criminal investigations, rather, it is a record clearing house that serves as a means of communicating information from the police of any one country to those of another. The majority of nations, including all major Western powers, are members of Interpol. Thus, it coordinates the international activities of member countries, holds a liberty of international criminal records, and organizes regular meetings at which delegates can exchange information on police work. Most countries are members of the International Criminal Police Organization. Interpol established to detect and fight transnational crime and provide for international cooperation and coordination of other police activities, such as notifying relatives of the death of foreign nationals. Interpol does not conduct inquiries, nor does it arrest by itself, but only serves as a central point for information on crime, suspects, and criminals. Political crimes are excluded from its competencies. Interpol is financed by contributions from member countries. Its budget is in 1997 was $28 million. Thank you.